Thank you for joining us today. Today's guest is Elizabeth Boisson. She is with Helping Parents Heal, a wonderful nonprofit organization that help parents heal after passing their children. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'll start with a light portion. So I always like to start 67 questions rapid fire round. So it's
Okay.
yes or no quickly. If you want a little longer, that's fine. Describe yourself in 3 words.
In 3 words. Okay. Um, Busy, um, loving, and busy. Very busy.
Great. Sun or snow?
Oh, definitely sun. I'm in Arizona. I'm glad that I'm here.
It's a place to be. Morning or evening?
I would say morning, definitely, but I'm also evening. I stay up until 11:30, but I get up at 5:30. So
Great.
both.
Tea or coffee?
Definitely coffee, although I love really good tea. So if I'm in London, I would say tea, but definitely coffee here.
Reruns of Law and Order or Sex and the City?
Oh, I like both. They're both a lot of fun, but it depends on, I guess, the evening or the daytime. Sex in the City, I always watched when I was doing my treadmill. So it's a really good daytime thing, and I suppose Law and Order would be better for nighttime.
Cats or dogs?
Definitely dogs, although I love cats as well. We have 5 dogs, and I've always
Wow.
had cats my whole life. I've
What
also
kind?
had, sorry,
What kind of
uh,
dogs do you have?
we have teacup Yorkies right now, but we used to always have big dogs. But then, right before Morgan passed, 2 days before he passed, when he was in Tibet, actually, and this is my son that I'll be talking about maybe later. But I just had a huge desire. We already had 4 dogs, 2 big dogs, 2 medium-sized, to have another dog. And that dog, we ended up calling Captain, which was Morgan's nickname, and he got us through. And so then we actually got another teacup Yorkie for him to mate with. And we kept all of the puppies, and my 2 daughters have a puppy each, and we have a puppy as well.
Oh, so adorable. Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Oh, I like both of them. We just went to a Rolling Stones concert here about 3 years ago in Arizona. I've never been to a Beatles concert, but I would say that
Way too
Beatles.
young, probably.
Excuse me.
You're way too young, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe, but but I also think that probably the Beatles are my favorite. I listen to the Beatles all the time. So yes,
Brie or Monterey Jack cheese?
definitely Brie. I definitely am a French cheese lover.
How did you start your day today?
How did I start it today? Let's see. I always teach yoga, so I get up at about 5:30 or 6, and then I get all of the Helping Parents Heal posts that I need to do done. And then I come into this casita where I am right now, which is kind of like a guest um, suite. And then I teach yoga. And I teach yoga both for healing as well as power yoga, as well as guided meditation, as well as just flow yoga. So I love being able to start my day that way.
Latest music you listen to?
Latest music I listen to. That's a good question. Let me think about this. We always listen to French music when we are driving up to Prescott. My parents live there. And yesterday we were listening to Johnny Hallyday. And he's one of my favorite artists as well. He's kind of the French Elvis, but he just passed away about 5 years ago. And beautiful voice.
Agree. A movie that made you cry?
Ooh, the one that made me cry the most. And it's so interesting because I was watching it when I was in India. I was living there and I was in a movie theater, and it was Sophie's Choice, and it had just come out, and it was at the embassy, and we were all watching it together. And when she had to make that choice, I let out this sob, and I was in high school. I must have been early in college because we stayed there for a while, and I was back. Um, I just, that movie probably was the hardest for me that I've ever seen. And it's interesting that it is something that later on I kind of experienced myself. So anyway, yeah, Sophie's Choice.
Favorite guilty pleasure?
Definitely chocolate Nutty Buddies. I never had chocolate before, and then all of a sudden, I guess now that I'm getting older, I've decided that I really like it, and it's not even that good. Probably not good for you, but it's absolutely delicious.
Picnic at the beach or candlelit dinner at a nice restaurant?
Definitely candlelit dinner at a nice restaurant. I don't like eating in sand or in the sun, actually, and I shouldn't be in the sun. So, candlelight restaurant is nicer.
Biggest pet peeve?
Biggest pet peeve. Let me think. I think that probably it's hard for me to say this, but I believe that it's probably people who say that you will never heal from the passing of a child and that you will grieve forever. And I know that sounds silly, but it's the one thing that really drives me crazy because I know that it's possible to heal and I know that it is possible to be happy and that our kids want us to be.
Your biggest strength?
Oh, I would say probably liking to talk to people and also having traveled a lot of different places. So I speak some languages and I also just really, really like meeting people. So I would say that's probably my biggest strength.
Now that's fun thing is over. Let's just go continue with
Oh,
the
I thought there
longest.
was Kevin. That was
Longest.
amazing. That was a lot of fun. I've never done that before.
Wonderful. Girls, for always the first time. So just a few questions that response doesn't have to be one or two words. You can respond as long
Okay.
as you like.
I'll fun a little
Um,
bit.
I like to start from the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in the States. I was born in Lafayette, Indiana. My dad was finishing a PhD at Purdue, and I didn't live there long.
After Lafayette, Indiana, did you? I hear you lived in France. It seems like you lived when you were a kid with your parent. Is that?
Yes, and we did also live in India, as I was saying. My dad was a university professor and finished at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the School of Public Health and Health Administration. And my daughter just earned her PhD in public health at the same school, which is an excellent school. We actually went overseas a lot with my dad because he was working for WHO as well, an excellent organization, the World Health Organization. And so we would go to places like India, and it was something that I really cherish about my childhood is that we did move a lot. He liked moving around. My mom, maybe less so because it wasn't easy going to all of these places so far away. But yeah, I did live in France for about 15 years. I was teaching at the University Paul Valéry when I was first over there because I also went to UNC undergrad and then grad school, and I was earning a master's in French, and so I went and taught at a university there and kind of led an exchange program with William and Mary and with the University of North Carolina. And it was really a lot of fun because I was kind of the mom for all of those kids. And then I was also teaching at the university. And then I fell in love with my husband and we got married and had 3 kids. And then finally, I came back and finished the master's at UNC. So that was 6 years later. It was 7 years later, though. So, yeah, which was wonderful. So I spent some time back in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And
What did you teach in France?
I was teaching First of all, at the University Paul Valéry, I was teaching American literature, and I was teaching American conversation classes, and there were usually a lot of kids in the classes. At the time, they actually went on strike, the university students did, the year that I was a graduate student, and I was heading the program I was heading the kind of exchange with these students, because the classes were so full and nobody, people couldn't get desks and things like that. And one of the amphitheaters, I think I had 70 people sign up for a class one time. And as a teacher, as a professor, you're supposed to make a decision about who can stay and who can, not stay. And it's just impossible because all of these kids need those classes to be able to graduate. And so I think it's gotten better now, but I was teaching there, and then I was offered a position at a business school, and I was teaching American geopolitical situation, the American geopolitical situation, as well as a class on advertisement and marketing, and it was all in English. So everything that I taught over there was in English, and when I was teaching here, I was teaching in French.
What was your dream when you were growing up?
Oh, goodness, that's such an interesting question. I think that probably my dream was I would have loved to have worked with animals my whole life. I wasn't able to do that just because I didn't become a vet. It would have been wonderful to do that. I didn't even think about doing anything medical because I am terrified of blood, so that wouldn't have worked. And I think that probably living someplace overseas, at least for a certain part of my life, would have been something that I wanted to do. Really, living in India was one of my favorite times of my life. It is such a beautiful country. It's gotten there are a lot more people there since I left, but it was just such a wonderful experience. And I also wanted to be able to offer that to my kids, living overseas the way that I had, because learning languages and learning about other cultures and being able to be comfortable in any social situation too with anyone is a really important skill.
Did you live in India for a number of years, I understand? Was
Um,
it when you were with Dad when you were a little
I was
girl?
initially there in middle school, and then there in high school, and then I was there in college. And so when I was there in college, I wasn't going to college there. I was staying there in the summertime, and then going back at Christmas break. But we traveled all over India. I love India. It's one of my favorite places. At that time, you could travel to Kashmir, which was just so beautiful. We would spend time in the summer on houseboats there. We would also travel to Gulmarg, where people go skiing, and then we'd also go to Rajasthan and go to the camel fair, or we would go to, there were just so many beautiful places to visit in India, and it was very easy to do so. When I was in high school, we'd actually, a lot of times, high school kids and college kids would go together and travel together, and it was very, very safe to do so.
You've lived such a different countries, France and India. What did this experience, both countries, what did you take away from this experience from each country?
I think that probably one of the things is being able to speak the language is probably one of the most helpful things living in any country, and being able to really communicate with the people there. France is near and dear to my heart as well. It's funny because my husband is French now. I'm French too, but my husband is French, and he grew up in Africa. And so he really doesn't like the way that French people are not quite as open and friendly the first time that you meet them, the way that Americans are. I love that about French people because I really feel that if you are a friend of someone in France, you're a friend for life. And I think that they are so good about making sure that their kids eat dinner with them every single night, even lunch. They would come home from school. The school would stop in the middle of the day, and we'd have our kids home for lunch, which is difficult for working mothers. And I think that that's all changed now. It was something that was very concerning to some mothers because they'd have to leave their kids in daycare while the other ones, would be going home to eat lunch. But I think that being able to focus on all of that, on being together as a family, is really wonderful, and having time to be able to do that. And I think that in France, people really take the time to cook their meals, to spend time shopping for food as well. And I think that here in the States, things go so fast. Everything is so fast. You have to do everything so quickly. Where we live in Cave Creek, Arizona, it isn't like that. But I think it's hard for people to find the time with their schedules and things like that to be able to spend as much time with family.
Yeah. Too bad joie de vivre doesn't translate into English very well. It's
Yes, joy of life, I suppose that's not something that we talk about here in the States, but I
we
love it here in
understand.
the States. And my husband loves it even more here. He really um, loves living in Arizona. He grew up reading French and Belgian comic books that are like hardback books that had Geronimo and Cochise and all of these different wonderful Native American warriors, as well as all of these cowboys, Wyatt Earp, and of course Tombstone is here, and the OK Corral is here, and so all of those things, and the Grand Canyon, and there are a lot of beautiful, and where we live, we look out on mountains. It's a beautiful state. But I remember my sister moved here from California, and I thought, what in the world is she doing? She's crazy to be moving to Arizona. It's so hot there. And I came and visited her when she had her first son, and it was in July, which is the hottest month, really. August is also pretty hot, but it's the hottest month, and I loved it. And I especially loved the haboobs, which are the dust storms that happen during the monsoon. They're just so beautiful with the lightning and thunder and this monsoon rain that comes. And then my husband and I came back together with the kids, and it was again in July, and we bought a house while we were here. We were only here for about 2 weeks, I think, and we decided to buy a house. So we went back to Chapel
You
Hill and packed everything up and came here.
oh, so you moved from France to Chapel Hill and then Chapel Hill too.
Yeah, I was finishing my degree, and then we were living in actually Carborough, which is a suburb of Chapel Hill. We loved it there, but Cyril's from Africa. I had lived in India for a while. We both really like being in the heat, and so coming out here, and Chapel Hill is not cold, but the years that we were there, it was very strange. We had so many ice storms, and we had some snowstorms as well. And I had told him it's beautiful, sunny. The sky is Carolina blue, as everyone says, and it turned out that it was a little bit colder than what he was expecting. So he's very happy here, and I am as well. I think it's a wonderful climate, but I miss living in France. I really do.
Did you ever go back to France to live for a period of time, or
Not to live. My in-laws lived there. A lot of our family lives in France, and so we had a house there till right before COVID, and so
mm,
we would go back and forth. Um, and then we sold it, which was a good thing because we wouldn't have been able to get over there actually right after my father-in-law passed. And so my mother-in-law had passed about 2 years before, and then he passed. So we would go back at least once a year for me, usually twice a year. And then my husband would go almost every month to see his parents. So but he was also working in France, so it was easy for him to stop by when he was in Paris to just stop down there.
You got married there, so you lived there. You had your kids there, right? Morgan was born in France, is that
Yes, he was born in France. All three of them were born in France. And
okay?
actually, I had four children born in France. Chelsea was born there as well. And they all were going to school in France. One of the things that we love about the States that's different from France is that there's a huge focus on extracurricular activities here in the States that you just can't do in France because the schedule is so rigorous. And that was something that I found very hard. When the kids would get home, they'd have so much homework. Initially, when Morgan learned how to write, he was starting to write with a fountain pen, one of those ones that had ink in it. He'd come home with, ink on his clothes. He'd have to memorize Les Fables de La Fontaine. So I can't think of what it is. So the Corbeau et le Renard. So the Crow and the Fox and all of these different animal stories, fables. It's fables. So we would have to spend a lot of time in memorization, and there wasn't very much time for him to be able to do sports. And Morgan was extremely active. He was the biggest kid in his class, and he was always very, very, very active. And I think that coming back here and being able to get into all of the sports that he did was a really good thing for him. I think the girls loved the sports and all of the other extracurricular activities. And I think that my husband really loved that as well, because he enjoyed going to all of the games and all of this. But again, I really miss it. It's beautiful. I love the people. And I think that things are changing over there. I think that there are more extracurricular activities. I think that things in France and in the States get more and more similar as time goes on, just scheduling wise and things like that. But it's so beautiful there. Where we live it was just absolutely beautiful, and beautiful climate as well. This is still beautiful, but it's very hot. I think it's probably 97 right now, but it's been up to 110 for a lot of the summer.
Wow. So you started to talk about your children. Would you like to introduce your children?
Would I like to? Sorry, I didn't
Introduce
hear. Oh,
introduce
sure.
your children. Talk
I
about.
would love to. Thank you so much. So, as I said, Morgan was born in 1988, and when he was fully grown, he was 6'7", and he had a heart to match. He was like a huge teddy bear, one of the nicest kids in the world. And he obviously spoke French from being in France, and he also spoke Chinese because he was earning a degree in East Asian Studies in French. And so he had been in China his sophomore year, and then he went back his senior year to be able to study in Nanjing again at Nanjing Normal University. And then he went to Tibet on a kind of a vacation that was supposed to be with two other professors. Initially, for that vacation, it was fall break. He had asked if he could go to Hong Kong to be able to see two of his very good friends who had been in China with him 2 years before. And we were worried, my husband and I, that he wouldn't be able to get back into China because of the visa issues. He had a student visa, and it might have been a little difficult. So we said, isn't there anything else going on that you could do? And he said, yeah, all of the kids are going to Tibet because they've been studying Tibet at Nanjing Normal University. And he said, could I go there? And we said, of course. And he said, there's two professors going. And I was thinking that would be just a perfect opportunity for him to spend time in Tibet, which is also a country that's near and dear to my heart, but I've never been there before. But they landed the first day they landed there at 11,000 feet in Lhasa. And then the next day, they immediately got on a bus to go up to 19,000 feet to the base camp of Mount Everest. And none of these kids really knew anything about altitude sickness, which is really sad because I think that if they had had any idea of all of the signs that all of the kids were showing, they would have turned around and gone back. They had a Chinese tour guide with them. The two professors decided not to come, and the Chinese tour guide really wanted to get up to the base camp to be able to beat sunset. He wanted to be up there before dark. And all of the kids were throwing up. They kept having to stop the bus, and they were actually urinating on themselves in the bus, because this is also a sign of altitude sickness. They were very, very out of it. And when they finally got to the base camp, Morgan had an incredible headache. He was helping all the other kids because he spoke Chinese better than everyone. He'd been there for a year before. And so when other kids would be throwing up, he'd be helping them out and everything. Then he said he was going to go to bed kind of early. He had a terrible migraine. He took some NyQuil because that's all he had with him, and he didn't really know what else to do. And then during the night, he was in a yurt, which is a big tent. All of the kids were sleeping in the tent, and they saw him getting up and kind of wandering around, which is also a sign of altitude sickness. He was calling people the wrong name. And then at 9 o'clock in the morning, one of the kids, they were going to be leaving at 9. One of the kids tried to go and wake him up, and he was foaming at the mouth. And so they realized from calling the mom of one of the kids who was on the program, who is a doctor in Washington, in the state of Washington, that they needed to get him down in altitude as quickly as possible. But he, as I said, was 6'7" and 280 pounds. And these 13 kids had to figure out a way to get him back onto the bus. They got him loaded onto the bus. They started down the mountain. The director of the program called me, and he said, "Miss Boisson, there's a problem. Morgan has got altitude sickness, and they're taking him down the mountain right now. Would you like his roommate's phone number?" And I was excited about that because ever since he'd gotten to Lhasa, I hadn't been able to reach him, which I assume now was because he was so out of it, he wasn't really hearing the ring. So I was able to call Colin, which was one of his roommates. And by that time, they had to stop the bus because Morgan had stopped breathing. And they got him off the bus, and they were attempting CPR on him. But of course, these kids didn't know anything about CPR. They're just college students, and they were trying their best. And when I called, Colin said, "Miss Boisson, it doesn't look good." And he said, "I don't think he'll make it." And I said, "Colin, could you put the phone up to his ear?" And he did so. And right when he did that, I told Morgan that I loved him, that we were proud of him, and not to be afraid. I have no idea of how that came to me. And when I did it, I felt him in the office here in Cave Creek. I felt him hug me. It was one of the most incredible things. And I felt like I was with him. I felt like I was in this beautiful place. I felt so loved, so much love. And I still, when I talk about the experience, I can feel that love still. And I just was so blown away. And I was so happy. And my husband said to me next to me, "Can I speak to him?" Because he would have never known from the way that I was acting that Morgan had passed. And I said, "I'm sorry, I think that he's passed." And so I passed him the phone. And anyway, what I wanted to say about all of this is that this experience that I had set me on this journey to be able to understand the afterlife and understand where our kids go. I had just practiced yoga right before this happened. I was training to be a yoga instructor at the time. But I also think that the reason that I had this shared death experience with Morgan is because of the fact that my daughter Chelsea had passed. So Chelsea passed in 1991 in the south of France. She was born and survived for 2 days on a ventilator. I had placenta previa, which created an issue for my pregnancy. and I needed to be on an IV for about 2 months in a hospital. And then I wasn't able to stop the contractions. My water broke, and my obstetrician really didn't want to have me have the baby, but he didn't make it to the hospital. And I was there for about 5 days before he finally said, okay. I could feel that she was kicking less and less as well. And so her lungs had been crushed, which is interesting because with altitude sickness, it's also an issue with the lungs and the brain, but especially the lungs. And so I think that the fact that I already had Chelsea over there, and I think that when Chelsea passed, I started feeling like I had 1 foot here and 1 foot on the other side. It really helped me to connect with Morgan immediately. And I've been told that as soon as Morgan transitioned, Chelsea took his hand and led him to me to give me that hug. And so anyway, I didn't know what a shared death experience was. I thought this was pretty amazing because I actually wanted to meet other parents immediately to see if this happened to them when their children passed. And people that I met hadn't had, it wasn't something that had happened to them. Although now I have met other people like this. But when I started following Raymond Moody and I actually met him, he talks about near-death experiences. And then later on, he started talking about shared death experiences. So near-death experiences are when someone transitions and then they are able to come back into their bodies. And so they have experienced going through this tunnel of light, going to the other side, seeing what it's like over there. But I'd never heard about shared death experiences. Actually, Life After Life, which is by Dr. Raymond Moody, was the first book that I read after Morgan transitioned. But I didn't see anything about shared death experiences. And I thought, this is really weird. Why am I feeling Morgan so much? Why do I keep on seeing him? Why do I keep experiencing things and in 2009, when he transitioned, there weren't any other support groups that really talked about the afterlife or about our connection with our kids on the other side. And so I would go to meetings, support meetings, and I'd try to talk about what was happening to see if other parents were having the same thing happen. And the leaders would say, I'm sorry, we don't talk about that in this group. So I would be in the parking lot and I'd have parents come up to me and say, I'm having the same thing happen to me. Oh my gosh, I thought that this was something that nobody else had happen, and I thought I was crazy. And so I saw a real need for a group like this, and I started helping parents heal online about a week after Morgan transitioned, because I really thought that it was important for parents to understand that our kids aren't gone, that they're still right here, that they are happy, healthy, and home, and we're still visiting, or we're still in school, as you know, a lot of people say, and that they want us to be able to move forward and heal. And I feel like they're our biggest cheerleaders. Morgan was actually a cheerleader at the University of Arizona. He had been a football player at Cactus Shadows, which was his high school, and I told him he wasn't allowed to play football in college, no way. And it turns out that cheerleading is even more dangerous. There are more injuries in cheerleading than there are in football. But it was a lot of fun to watch him. He and the team got to go to New York because they competed for Paula Abdul's television show. It was kind of a first season called Raw, R-A-H, which is what the cheerleaders say. And they competed with all of these other schools across the country. And they are very athletic. It's so much fun to watch. But I'm saying this about Morgan and his cheerleading because I feel like our kids, when they transition, are our biggest cheerleaders. And they want us to heal. They want us to be happy. They want us to live our lives and make them proud. And I think that one of the things that I've kind of seen is that the kids are kind of looking at us the way that dads used to in the maternity ward when they would go to see their child, and they'd have all these kids in front of them and they'd say, "That's my son, that's my daughter." I feel like the kids are saying, "That's my mom, that's my dad," because they're so proud of us for being able to continue living in spite of the fact that we don't have them physically here. Would you like for me to
It's,
tell you about my other kids? Or I mean,
it's
children,
yeah,
obviously. I
it's a
have two.
tragedy. No, not quite. It's a tragedy when it happened once. It's yeah, I think it's end of life. It's tragic. It happened to you twice. Did you ever had anger?
No,
Was anger
never,
the
ever.
no?
No, I have
What
always,
have you can be prepared for that experience? Hard to say it experience. You haven't prepared for this blow to your life, blowing somebody cutting the hole in your heart. What did what were you spiritual before something prepared you to handle that? You seem to handle
must
that.
say that
You were
living,
able to help somebody in a week.
I think that living in India really helped me. The Eastern religions are just so healing in terms of reincarnation, in terms of um, being able to understand that death is not the end. Um, I I also feel like again, having Chelsea transition, and that was very, very difficult. But I must say that being in the hospital for 2 months was one of the hardest things that I've ever experienced, because Morgan was 2 years old at the time
Mm.
and couldn't really come to see me very often. And all I wanted was to be back home with Morgan. So Morgan helped me heal from the transition of Chelsea. And then I was really fortunate, and I now have two other girls, Alix and Christine. And so they're amazing. They've helped me with Helping Parents Heal from the very beginning. They would be at every in-person meeting, welcoming people, helping them with their name tags and things like that. And I think that that helped them as well, to be able to see other parents. And we do have a Helping Siblings Heal as well that formed later on, but we have about 1,000 members of Helping Siblings Heal. And I think that just realizing, I think that first of all, having that happen with Chelsea. Secondly, practicing yoga most of my life. I started when I was in India, so I've been practicing yoga. And I think that it's a really great way, especially with meditation, to calm ourselves down, to go inward, and then also to connect, not just with a higher power, but also with, and that could be whatever anyone wants to believe in. It could just be with yourself, with your own soul, but being able to ground yourself. And it's interesting because when Morgan transitioned, I have a lot of friends here in Cave Creek, and he was on the football team and he was well loved by so many people. And all of these football moms and book club moms that would come over to see me would say, "You look fine now. You look great, but you're in for a really hard fall. It's going to be really difficult later on." And I knew a grief therapist at the mortuary where actually Morgan, he was cremated, but who was helping some of the parents and Helping Parents Heal, who would tell me, "This just isn't normal. You're going to have a really hard time later on." And so I kept thinking, well, maybe they're right. Maybe this is not something that is going to last. But I feel very fortunate that I was able to know that Morgan was still here immediately after he transitioned, and that he keeps sending me signs. And I think that it was supposed to be that way because of that, I was able to start Helping Parents Heal. I probably would never have started it if I hadn't had that shared death experience with him.
I understand your spiritual journey, but what was a dynamic with your husband and
That's a very,
and Alex and Christine, who might not be that spiritually advanced, I would say, right? What was
I
their
think that
journey? How you helped them
to heal.
heal?
Well, it's definitely a different journey. And I think that one of the things that kind of proves that is that our membership, which is all over the world, we have affiliates all over the world, but um, 30,000 plus on Facebook, it's made up of at least 80% women, moms, who immediately undertake this journey to start healing because they want to be able to do this. They're more emotional. They let out their feelings. Um, they're able to express themselves in a group setting. Dads have a much more difficult road, and it's a much more isolating journey. But helping fathers heal, which is actually one of the books the dads wrote, which is, I think, 24 dads who got together and wrote about their own healing journey, is so incredible because it's a space that's only for dads. And they have weekly Zoom meetings and they get together and talk about their kids. And they just had a conference. It was actually a Helping Fathers Heal first retreat. We have conferences with Helping Parents Heal, and we have about 1,100 parents. This was much smaller. There were probably 60 dads who attended, and they had the most incredible time. And it was such a healing weekend for them. But I think that it really is important for them to be able to be with guys, because I think that dads feel like they have to heal their wives before they can, and fix their wives before they can start their own journey. I think that siblings are also the same way. I think that kids believe that they have to do everything in their power to help their parents before they can actually concentrate on themselves. And so it isn't as easy. And for my girls, they're very intuitive. They were getting signs from Morgan as well. They were getting all of this exciting, they were having so many exciting things happen, but it wasn't as exciting to them. It was scary kind of, because it's not something that all of their friends were experiencing. It's not something that they signed up for. It's not something that they necessarily wanted to concentrate on, the way that I think that a lot of times when you're a parent, all you want to do is to figure out ways to connect with your child in spirit. In fact, one of my daughters took a job in London after she graduated um, from LSE. And when my other daughter and I went out for drinks with her coworkers, my other daughter, my younger daughter, had a gold picture of her brother that was around her neck, because we all had one of Morgan. And one of the coworkers asked who that was, and she explained, didn't my sister tell you this is my brother? And she went on and on about how he transitioned. And really, Alix didn't want to be identified as that person who had a brother in spirit. She wanted to be able to be like everyone else, in spite of the fact that she loves her brother very much, and she is such an incredible intuitive, and she meditates and is able to connect with him. She doesn't want to make that something that is public or well known. But I think that being a mom and being a woman, because again, for dads, it's the same way, especially all this woo-woo stuff where we're connecting with our kids instead of just grieving normally, which I hate that word. We never say grieving in Helping Parents Heal.
Normal in one sentence. How? What is normal in that
Yeah,
process?
exactly. No, you're right. Exactly. What is normal? No family has a normal situation. Everybody's unique. And I think that one of the things that's important to also understand is that although I'm saying that it's easier for women, everyone is unique. Everyone's healing path is unique. It could take a lot longer for a woman to move forward and heal as well. And maybe her husband is moving forward more quickly. I would say that the affiliate leader for the sibling group, or one of them, who's from Ohio, but he's moved here now, he is one of the oldest souls that I've ever met. He's just so much older than I think he's 32 now. But when I met him, he was much younger than that. His mother is also an affiliate leader, so that's how he got dragged into it. But he wasn't ever dragged into it. He was really interested. He takes classes to learn how to connect with his brother. But I don't think that that's standard in terms of siblings, or definitely in terms of dads either.
I wanted to ask you if the word guilt comes to mind. I understand a lot of parents experience, I don't know if you experience that, maybe not, but I hear a lot of parents experience guilt. I should not let him drive at night. I should have checked in on her. I should be next to my son, my daughter. Is that something a lot of people have in common? And what is your healing advice and something like that?
Well, that's an excellent question, first of all. And I have to say that I would say that every single parent experiences guilt, no matter what way their child transitioned. I think that there are some ways of exit points that are more difficult than others, such as if a child transitions by suicide. I think that a lot of times, because of the societal views about suicide, the religious views and things like that, it's very difficult. So we actually have affiliate groups specifically for helping parents heal moving forward after suicide, for instance, in different countries as well, not just here, but in the UK and in Australia. But it wasn't because we ever we don't differentiate between the way that kids transition. It's the parents who really want these groups to be able to get together with, for instance, we have Helping Parents Heal substance use. So these are parents who have had children transition from substance use. Helping Parents Heal parents of children of special needs, for instance. That was my husband who was just looking in on me. I don't think he knew where I was, actually. We have groups for pretty much any type of transition. And we also, I think that it's really important for people to understand that I believe that this is something that we talk to parents about a lot, that if our kids hadn't transitioned the way that they had, they would have transitioned in a different exit point. It was very interesting because for me, about a week after Morgan transitioned, a person that I'd never met before recommended this medium who's Italian, who lives in Glendale in a little, in a little neighborhood where I would never have found her. We went as a family and Morgan came through right away. And she saw him putting his arms around my neck, which he always did because he's so tall. He'd put his head right here. And he explained to her that he wanted her to tell me that if he hadn't transitioned at the base camp of Mount Everest, he would have transitioned on the I-10 driving between the University of Arizona, where he was a student, and Cave Creek, which is a very dangerous highway. I always was worried about that. And I think that that's something that we learn a lot more about. We never have to believe this or, think that this is true, but I believe in a soul plan. I believe that when we come here, we've already written this whole plan with our kids, that we already decided what we were going to do. and that we were going to learn from this journey that we are taking with them still, and with everyone else in our lives that are part of this soul plan. I also believe that any situation that comes into our lives that's difficult is not necessarily, it's not necessarily there because the person is a bad person or someone who is difficult. It's probably because this person is our teacher, and that we're learning something very important from it. And so I know that this experience of having Morgan transition, having Chelsea transition, were two of the most horrible things that could ever happen to a parent, to a sibling, to anyone who was in the family. Actually, my parents are also, it's been very difficult for them. But I also think that there's so much collateral beauty that comes from this journey. And of course, that's a movie, it comes from Will Smith, but it is collateral beauty, meaning that we learn about so many other things that are important. We learn how to be more compassionate, how to be more loving. We learn that this journey here on earth is all about love, and that nothing else really matters. Helping others is something that helps us more than it actually helps the person that we're helping. Once we've gotten a little bit farther down the healing journey, being able to help, reach a hand back and help someone forward is one of the best feelings in the world. Just being able to tell them it's going to be okay. Your child is not gone. They're still right here, and they will be with you forever. And when you transition, it'll be as though not 1 second has passed between you and your child. And because they participate in everything that we do. And I feel that all of our kids are really our guiding lights. In fact, in Helping Parents Heal, we don't call ourselves bereaved parents. We call ourselves shining light parents, which comes from the fact that the light of our children shine through us. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking too long. It looked like you had a question. Did you want to say something?
No, 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 no. I'm listening. That's very interesting. No, I have a few questions, but I'm listening. It's very
Could I
interesting. I
just tell you
Yes,
where
yes.
it came from? So
Mm,
Irene Bubalides, who is the vice president, and she also is the main conference organizer. We do the conference together, but um, she and I both thought that bereaved is the most horrible word in the dictionary. I mean, there's nothing that probably is worse
very
than that
heavy,
word.
very heavy.
And so we spoke to a friend of ours who is an evidential medium. Her name is Suzanne Giesman. And she said, I'm going to meditate on this and I'm going to see what I come up with. And she came up with the term Shining Light Parent. So our third book is called Shining Light Parents Speak. So 150 of our affiliate leaders and caring listeners, because we have a group of caring listeners who speak to parents whose children have passed, talked to Dr. Mark Pitstick about their healing journeys and about how they had moved forward and healed. And so this term, shining light parent, is very, very, we say shining light parent, we say shining light sibling. We never say that we've lost our kids because they are so found. They know exactly where they are. We're the ones who are lost, if anyone's lost. And we never say died because they're not dead. And there are quite a few other things that we don't say, but so we say shining light dads, shining light moms, shining light siblings, shining light aunts, grandparents. But anyway, it's a beautiful way to express what I feel is very, very true. I feel that Morgan and Chelsea's light shines through me. I think that a lot of times when you see a parent who has a connection with their child in spirit, they look radiant. They really do. And I think that that is because their child is constantly, constantly with them.
Mm, incredible. You do shine. You do really
Oh,
shine. You mentioned your pet peeve being people saying, I can't, I cannot be healed.
I think that it's not necessarily the
What
person.
what do you say, or how do I approach somebody who saying I don't believe, I'm not believer. They didn't transition. They are this and this and this. What is your
Well,
approach to that? And next
first
to
of all,
compassion.
we never ever try to recruit people into helping parents heal. We feel like the kids are bringing the parents to us. We don't do any advertising or anything. So it's not my pet peeve that people who have had a child transition say, I can never be healed. I can completely understand that. I'm going to grieve forever. I can understand that. I don't like it when support groups tell parents or therapists tell parents, you're going to grieve forever. You're going to be sad forever. There's nothing really that can be done about the transition to heal from the transition of a child. And I hear that so much. And I find it very discouraging because parents then believe this and they don't understand that it's not true at all. And I must say that I've had some of the most joy in my life since Morgan transitioned, but I know that he's sharing and Chelsea. And I tend to not talk about Chelsea as much just because she transitioned before my two daughters did. And then also I didn't have nearly as long with Chelsea as I did with Morgan, but I feel that both of them share in everything that I do. And they're always sending me signs to let me know, especially things like weddings, if I'm going to a wedding or if I'm going to, if we're having Thanksgiving Day here, which was one of Morgan's favorites because he loved every single thing that we ate at Thanksgiving. So, and then for the holidays, being able to put a decoration with your child's picture on the tree, being able to include them. It's interesting. I have a friend whose son transitioned, and one of her sisters had a wedding for her son. So it was this mom's nephew, and they set a place for him at the table, Tyler, who had transitioned. And it was something that I think was it was wonderful for everyone who was there. Not that everyone should do that, because I think that whoever's getting married should decide whatever they want to do, and they don't have to have their cousin or their sibling as part of the wedding. But I do feel like we include Morgan and Chelsea as much as we can in our lives. And I think that that helps. And one really big problem in today's society is that people feel very uncomfortable talking to parents who have a child who's transitioned because they feel like they're going to say something wrong. So even our friends and family are afraid to talk to us about our kids because they think that we're going to start crying, or it's going to be hard for us, or it just makes them feel uncomfortable because they love them so much. Having a place like Helping Parents Heal, where we can talk about our kids and know that no one feels uncomfortable and that they love hearing about the stories that we have, about the signs that they're sending us, and the connection that we have with them in spirit, is really a godsend. I think that's why support groups exist anyway, but I do believe that having a child transition can be very isolating. And so it is good to be able to find people who have been through the same thing.
How often do you come across parents who feel the signs from their kids, like you
I would
did,
say,
or you like you do?
oh, every single day. It's something that we talk about in our group every single day. I think that when you're in tune with your child, a lot of times you get these signs every day. I think that those signs come at the very beginning a lot because the kids are trying so hard to help us heal. But I also believe that they are very busy on the other side. They don't have necessarily time to constantly be sending us signs. But one of the things that I do is to publish a newsletter. And the newsletter just was published 2 days ago for Helping Parents Heal. So the September issue. And then I also have a weekly one. But in the monthly one, we have validation stories. We call them validation stories from parents about their children and about the signs they're sending. So every month I put in a bunch of stories that parents have experienced, which is really, really fun to be able to talk about them.
Oh, it's incredible. What I know a lot of people might have who didn't have that experience of their kids transitioning, losing their kids, are afraid to approach, afraid to pick up the phone, afraid to text, thinking they might interfere with the grief, so to speak, or being too much or not knowing what to say. What do you say to somebody like that, whether it's family or friends or coworkers?
I would say that the only thing that a parent who has had a child transition needs is a hug in the beginning. So the thing that I loved the most when people would come up to me was when someone would come up and hug me and say no words, because that cut through all of the things that they might have thought that they would say wrong. And it was something that was so comforting to me. The one thing that was the hardest for me on this journey was being in the grocery store and having a mom that I knew really well, or a dad, with a caddy coming towards me and then turn around because they didn't want to have to deal with speaking to me because they didn't know what to say. But I think that it's really important for people to understand that if they are talking to a parent who has had a child transition, just being there to listen is the most important thing that anyone can do. Listen to us talk about our kids, but also if you have stories, memories about that child, if you have pictures that you've taken of that child or videos, that's the most exciting part of any journey, is being able to get these videos and pictures sometimes years later from friends and family. So that's another thing that's really wonderful. But I think that it's important because this never was the case for me, but I don't think that people should try to fix someone and to tell them that everything's going to be fine and that they need to move forward, they need to move on, for instance. Any of those things doesn't help a parent who's experiencing this kind of journey. What they do need is to be able to have someone to listen to what they're going through. And again, if that person is experiencing any connection with their child in spirit, it's a huge gift. And I think that it's wonderful for other people to hear this and maybe not say, oh, I know why you're experiencing this. You're deep in grief, and say, oh, that sounds so interesting. Tell me about other signs that your child has sent you.
It was incredibly meaningful conversation for me. I have two last questions for you.
Sure, yes.
Describe what you like the most by being a mom, and now I understand a grandma.
What I like most about it. Oh, goodness, there's so many things that I like about being a mom. I think that probably being able to see your kids grow and become compassionate and loving. Having this happen with Morgan really affected both of my daughters, and I think that a lot of people feel that this is going to be something that will ruin their lives and that they will never recover from it either. I really believe that it pushes them into careers where they're able to help others to heal as well. And that's been the case for my two daughters. I feel like Morgan is pushing them in their studies, get a PhD, get all of these other things, because it is really the only reason that we're here is to help others and to love others. And understanding that has been a huge part of my healing journey. But having my kids understand that and knowing my grandson will be the same way. I have to say that my daughter's husband was quarantining with us during COVID, and he's a twin, and his brother passed during this time. So before they got married, both of their brothers, and they actually looked a lot alike, were in spirit. So both my daughter and my son-in-law are bringing my grandson up in this atmosphere of cherishing every single moment, concentrating on family, doing everything that you can, traveling, doing the things that you can right now to be able to take advantage of every single moment. So I think that that is probably what I love the most about this journey right now with my kids, is that I see that in all of them.
What do you find extraordinary in every day?
Oh my goodness. I must say that one of the things I say every single time that I teach yoga, every morning, I say, this is a beautiful day. We've never seen this day before. And that was, by Maya Angelou, who I absolutely adore. I truly believe that every single day is a new opportunity to have an adventure. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm filled with gratitude. We actually honor all of the kids every single day by posting their birthday or their angel date with pictures of them. And we have little write-ups about them as well. And right now there's probably about 65 a day that I do, but they're all on the same page, so it's not difficult. But what I was going to say is that I can almost feel those kids pushing me out of bed to get to the computer to be able to post these tributes to them, because they love being recognized. And I am filled with gratitude. I feel so grateful for this journey. I feel so grateful for the people that I've met on this journey, who are all just incredible. I would never have met them. Everyone in this group is different. We have absolutely completely different belief systems, different occupations, different everything. But the thing that joins us is our kids in spirit, and we feel that they're all together having a blast, and that they high five each other every single time that they see a smile as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Mel. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate the invite. And I must say, this is probably the first interview that I've ever done with such intriguing questions. So thank you for doing that.